Now, here right here is a picture of our founders, the founders of the church. This is Richard Allen and Sarah Allen. Now, Richard Allen was born here in the city of Philadelphia in 1760. He was born into an enslaved family, a man by the name of Benjamin Chew. Now, Benjamin Chew was a Quaker, and he was a Pennsylvania Supreme Court justice. Around the age of 6, Richard Allen and his entire family were sold intact to a man by the name of Stokely Sturgis right outside of Dover, Delaware. So Richard Allen grew up on this farm with the, with the Sturgis family, and he writes that, now this is curious what he writes, because he's writing his autobiography after all this has happened. When he gets in his teens, probably about 15, 16, his family is sold away from him. He loses his mother, he loses his sister. We know that he had more children. We don't know what happened to the father. But his family is sold away from him, and who remains on the farm with him is his one brother and a sister. And he writes, he said, Stokely Sturgis was a kind man. He treated us like we were family. We all had prayer together, and it was very wonderful. But then he says, he sold my family away because he was in debt. Then he says, well, he was a good man, but I don't know where my mother, he kind of gives you an idea of, this is a nice guy, but this is what he did to my family, So what happens is, he decides that he does not like slavery. He says slavery is a bitter pill. Your work is never, ever done. And I think he understands that you never own yourself. You never own your family or anything. So what he does is, it's hard to imagine. It really is. But what he does is he and his brother, John, they approach Stokely Sturgis. And what they say is, we want to purchase our freedom. So they say, okay. And they purchased it for $2,000 continental money at that time, because this is during the American Revolutionary War. How does he earn it? He's hauling salt in Rehoboth, Delaware. Now, a funny thing about it is, he says he's hauling salt for the Army, making money. But the thing is, the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, approached his great-great-great-granddaughter. They said, we would like you to become a part of the DAR, because she can actually trace her ancestry, which most, Caucasians cannot do. But what they say is, but you have to prove that Richard Allen was hauling salt for the Americans and not the British. How can she prove that? It's amazing. Okay, you can join us, but you just have to prove. But in any event, so he would purchase his freedom. He would eventually move to Philadelphia. He started this church, after the walkout at St. George's down the street. And the first church was a black, and I'm just going to tell you briefly about Sarah. Now, this is Sarah Allen. This is his second wife. They would have 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. Now, Flora Allen was the original one to sign the deed over to Mother Bethel. They had been married 10 years, but unfortunately, Flora never had any children, or any children that survived that we know of. So, she died, and then he married Sarah, and they had 6 children. Now, Sarah was an enslaved woman from the Isle of Wight, Virginia. And she came to Philadelphia. We know she was enslaved, and how she purchased her freedom or got her freedom, we do not know. So, unfortunately, there's some spotty information. We're just trying to even find out and locate where her grave is. Some people say she's in Delaware County. Other people say she's in not Sarah, because Sarah's here, but Flora. Is she in Delaware County, the first wife, or is she in South Philly? Everybody claims to know where Flora Allen is buried, the first wife. And then I had the Park Service come in. They said, oh no, she's right up the street. When you come down 6th Street, there's a place called Washington Square, which was originally called Congo Square. Okay. And any place in Philadelphia, if you dig too deep, you're going to run into graves, because this was like a big cemetery plot. Really? Okay. So some say she's up the street, and then they were building a new playground in South Philly, and they found a Bethel church burial ground. So now they're saying she's up the street. Okay. Somebody else said she's in Delaware County. So, you know, everybody's looking for Florida now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But in any event, they would raise 6 children here in the city of Philadelphia. Now, you see this portrait right here. This is normally how they would take if you were an escaped slave. They had the first Fugitive Slave Act in 1793. If they found that you were an escaped slave, you were here in the city of Philadelphia, the bounty hunters would just come and whisk you away. Richard Allen, they accused him of being an escaped slave. They came to Philadelphia to get him, and even the constable, because some events are going to lead up. So in 1808, he's known to everyone here in the city of Philadelphia. Even the constable told the fugitive slave captors, "You got the wrong man. You don't want to take this man to jail." And now he fits a description. They said, "No, you've got the wrong man." They insisted. So how the story is told is the constable went to Richard Allen's door, knocked on the door, and just said, "You know, Reverend Allen, would you accompany us to Market Street? We just want you to present the documents, and then you'll be on your way."